Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Great Scott! There's no crying in baseball!
You better hold on tight, Spider Monkey.
This is where the fun begins.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. That's right, we're ranking Kraven the Hunter. Kraven the Hunter is a 2024 American superhero film, the sixth film in Sony's Spider-Man universe. It explores Sergei Kravenov's transformation into the Hunter Kraven, driven by a complex relationship with his ruthless father. This movie, dude, let's get into it. Let's just talk about the 10 essential aspects of a movie. First is plot. Does the movie follow a comprehensive story arc and is plausible within the world that has been created? No, it doesn't make sense. There's no comprehensive story arc. My biggest gripe with this movie is the origin story. This is what it's about. Unfortunately, I don't know the comic books, so I don't know what is true to the comic books and what's been made up, but I'm going to take a leap and say that the origin of Kraven is not what was in this movie, or at least it was told better, because there is a huge section of this movie that kind of goes back in time to show you why Kraven is the way he is, and it just makes no sense. It was really stupid. It was not set up well at all, and there's no explanation to why things occurred when they occurred or how. There's no reasoning given there. If there is, it's so vague that I didn't even notice. One of the main problems with this plot is the motivation for the plot. The motivation to keep the story going. Why characters did things, why they cared so much, it just didn't make sense. It was so rushed and terribly made. And you can see it as you watch it. It just made it really confusing and boring. Second is attraction. Does the movie have an interesting premise with a high entertainment value? It could. It could have some attraction. The story could have been good. I feel if they took this story a little more serious, even with the weird route that they took, could have been pretty good, but it's just not. I really don't even think comic book fans would enjoy this movie. Sometimes you have such a love for something that you can bypass the terribleness just because you enjoy that character or the world that they come from. I don't even think Spider-Man fans will enjoy this movie. It's just not that good. It's so poorly made, and they didn't even ensure that the audience that they were going to go for, that was going to watch this movie, being Spider-Man fans, were satisfied. They didn't even give them the little Easter eggs that they wanted to see in this movie to make it just an even little bit better. I don't know what they were doing, but the attraction is not here. Third is theme. What message or truth is the movie trying to convey? The best I could pull for this movie is one of the largest things, plot points of this movie, one of the large 2 or 3, is the relationship between father and son. How the father wants the son to be very different. The son doesn't want to follow in the father's footsteps. The complexity of that relationship. I feel that they were trying to indicate something, that you are not what people say you are. Just because someone says you're destined to be something doesn't mean you are. You're free to do your own choices and make yourself your own person for your own reasons. That's about the best I could pull from this movie. Fourth is dialogue. Is there a real feel to the conversation? The dialogue is not so bad that it's glaring. It's just, it's just hard to watch. You know how terrible it has been written. It's not that bad. However, it has no depth. The conversations being had don't necessarily feel all that real, because intense situations where the conversations could be deeper and have a better feeling around them, they just don't. So the dialogue is just kind of okay. It's not terrible, but it really doesn't do anything good for the story. Fifth is acting. Are the characters convincing? The acting, I feel a lot of the actors could not really show how good they were at acting because of a lack of good directing, a lack of good storytelling and writing. there just wasn't enough there for them to be able to really show off their skills. So I don't want to judge them too hard. They had several actors in this movie that I think are good actors, but they didn't do anything to stand out because they didn't really have a platform to stand out. That being said, I really did enjoy Russell Crowe as Nikolai Kravinoff, the father in this movie. He was the only character that I kept wanting to see more of. I just enjoy him in that role. I thought he fit the role well, and his presence was intimidating, and it was the presence that was supposed to be given off by this character. He's one of the only ones that I felt had a chance to take their character and do something good with it, and he did a good job with what he had. 6 is cinematography. Is there a creative use of lighting, setting, and wardrobe to convey emotion? Now, there's not that much to look at in this movie that is appealing. There's no wardrobe, lighting, or setting that is really that good. I will say the action of this movie is decent. It's one of the only good things about this movie. When there is action, it's pretty good. I thought they did a good job with it. It's somewhat entertaining. It's kind of lackluster because of the rest of the movie. You don't really care about what's going on, but it's somewhat interesting. It's one of the only good things in this movie. I will say that there's a part of this character where he kind of hunts like the animals. In some instances, he tries to be like an animal, and he's obviously somewhat superhuman. I felt that was a good route to take, but they didn't do a great job with it. It wasn't as serious as it could have been. If he actually hunted like certain animals, and it was really obvious, and it was done to strike fear into his enemies, if they could have focused on the fear part and had him actually be scary because he really was like these animals, I feel like that could have been really good, and it could have elevated this movie just that bit more to make it savable, because he's just a cool character, because he hunts like different kinds of animals and uses the strategies of different animals. I thought that could have been done really well. It just wasn't done that well, but it was a cool idea. As far as emotion goes, there ain't none. The only emotion I felt in this movie was being drowsy. I was ready to go to sleep. The character development is terrible. You don't care about any of these characters. You don't care about what happens at all to the story, because it's such a mess and it doesn't make any sense that you can't even begin to try and actually care about what is going on the screen. So cinematically, there's just no emotion. 7th is editing. This is all about the pace of the movie. The movie is 2 hours and 7 minutes long. It is way too long. It should never have been this long. I know it is an origin story, so you have to have a little bit more background information and then have an enemy come along, but there's no reason this movie should have been longer than an hour and 40 minutes, maybe. I mean, 2 hours was just way too long. I was begging for this thing to end. 8th is soundtrack. There's nothing memorable about this soundtrack. Unfortunately, there's been so many superhero movies that there's just a superhero tone to this music, and that's it, but it's not something I'll remember. 9th is directing. Now, I feel the directors in charge of the previous 8 aspects, they're the ones that have to put their stamp of approval on it, put it all together, and make a good movie. Now, the director of this movie is J.C. Chandor, and this is his 5th film. The 5 movies that he has directed are Margin Call, All Is Lost, A Most Violent Year, Triple Frontier, and finally Kraven the Hunter. Now, I'm not sure. I haven't seen any of those previous movies, so all I can base him on is this movie right here, and it's not good. I really did not like what was being done in this movie. A lot of choices made by the director. It is just not a very good movie at all. I think one of the biggest sins as a director is to have a movie that has a plot that doesn't really make sense, because that's one of the biggest sins you can have as a storyteller. The whole point is to tell an interesting story. If you can't begin at that, don't even begin to look at the other parts of a movie. So I don't want to say he's a terrible director just because of this one film, but honestly, based on how badly he did this film, I don't know how good he possibly could be. The only excuse he could have is the fact that this is Sony. This is some superheroes. It is on major market, so there may have been a lot of things being said, being pushed that he didn't really have control of. I'm not sure. I would probably give him one more movie before I make a pretty solid decision on him, but based on this, he's not that good. 10th is time. Will it stand the test of time? No, it will not stand the test of time. The only way this movie is going to be remembered is the fact that it was a part of a series of movies released by Sony that have just been god-awful. Hopefully it will be remembered as the last one of those streaks of movies. Now for the review section. Rotten Tomatoes critics gives it a 16. The audience gives it a 74. And IMDb gives it a 54. Pretty large disparity here between reviews. 16 is entirely too low. It's a bad movie. It has bad parts, but it has redeemable parts. It has some interesting parts. I know there are movies out there that have zero interesting parts at all. Take Space Jam: A New Legacy. I'd rather watch this movie than that movie. There's some movies that are worse. I don't think 16. I just don't think it's that low. 74 is entirely too high. Again, this might just be comic book people who just kind of enjoy anything that is superhero-esque at all, no matter how bad it is. I don't know, but even 74 is high for me. I would agree more with the 54. I feel like IMDb is for the most part, where I agree most of the time. I would say this movie is probably, I don't know, you could give it a 30 or 40s, and I would probably agree. It has very, very little saving it. The only thing that's saving it is the fact that it did have some money behind it, to have some production value, to make the action sequences fun, and the characters can be somewhat interesting, but honestly, that's about it. So I would probably put it in the 30s or 40s. Finally, for the rankings. For the year of 2024, out of 28 total movies, on the entertainment side, it is going to be 23rd, just below It Ends With Us and above Venom: The Last Dance. I have it below It Ends With Us because I did enjoy the romantic aspects of It Ends With Us, because I'm a little bit of a sucker for a romantic, and there's more of that than the action that I enjoyed in Kraven. Overall, the movie It Ends With Us, I had problems with it, but there were parts of it I really enjoyed. There aren't here for Kraven. I enjoyed practically none of it. The action sequences are the only thing that somewhat kept it entertaining, but if I had to choose between the two, I would easily choose It Ends With Us before Kraven. Now, I have it just above Venom: The Last Dance. These two are so similar to me. They are terrible movies as far as superhero movies go. I would never watch them again. However, Venom: The Last Dance was full of comedy that I did not enjoy, and to me that was much more insufferable, was having to hear joke after joke that's supposed to be funny that I am just cringing and not enjoying at all. Kraven may not have been a great movie, but it did have more of a serious tone throughout the whole thing. It wasn't bothering me the entire time, just the whole movie bothered me because its lack of cohesion, its lack of point, and having a good story arc. But I would much rather go through that than having to deal with comedy that I just really do not enjoy over and over and over again for 2 straight hours. Now, cinematically, out of 28 total movies, it is going to be 27th, just below Frogman and above Reagan. Now, Frogman, like I've said before, Frogman is not as bad of a movie as you might think. It actually does have some redeemable aspects to it. The acting is really not that bad. It's just boring. It doesn't bring a lot to the table cinematically because it has no budget, and for the most part the movie is really boring. While Kraven the Hunter has a huge budget and is really boring. I at least somewhat enjoyed the story of Frogman. I can watch that movie and laugh at it. This movie is so bad that I can't even laugh at it. I think cinematically Frogman did more with less, and that's why I've got to put it above Kraven the Hunter. Now, I do have it above Reagan. Reagan is just a mess as well. It's just I did not think it was a well-made movie at all. Didn't think the plot they didn't explain enough for the plot to make sense, even though it's a true story. They didn't give much background to explain what is going on. Kraven the Hunter had an aspect that I enjoyed, which was the action. I could somewhat pull that out. Reagan had nothing I enjoyed. There was nothing I liked about that movie at all. I can't even remember if I did say any small thing that I could hang on to enjoy that movie. Kraven, I can at least hang on to that action. Now, for the decade of the 2020s, out of 30 total movies, it is going to be 24th, just below It Ends With Us and above Venom: The Last Dance. It is there for the exact same reasons as before. Now, for cinematography, out of 30 total movies, it is going to be 28th, just below Frogman and above Space Jam: A New Legacy. Now, I have it above Space Jam: A New Legacy. The only thing I could hold on to for Space Jam: A New Legacy was the actual visuals, but something that was terrible in that movie was the acting. Space Jam obviously starred LeBron James as the main character, and he was incredibly bad at acting, which you somewhat expect. Kraven didn't have terrible acting. Everything else was just pretty terrible, other than maybe the action, and that's it. So I just have to hang on to those little things. It represents film a little bit better because it actually had decent acting. I feel like that's a little bit more important than the visuals of Space Jam. Now, all time, out of 42 total movies, on the entertainment side, it's going to be 36th, just below Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, and above Venom: The Last Dance. Now, I have it below Paranormal Activity. That's just a personal preference. There was a little tiny atmosphere to Paranormal Activity that I somewhat enjoyed, but I would never watch either of these movies again. But if I had to choose one, I feel like I would choose Paranormal Activity because there was at least a point or two where it actually did its job, which was to have me feel somewhat, not scared, but you were just drawn into the movie enough that it was a little bit, gave me goosebumps a little bit. And I just feel like it actually did something it was supposed to do, where the only thing Kraven was supposed to do was entertain me, and it just didn't even do that. Now, cinematically, out of 42 total movies, it is 40th, just below Frogman and above Space Jam: A New Legacy. It's at the same point for the exact same reasons as before. Now, that's all I've got for Kraven the Hunter. Good Lord, was this movie terrible. It was not good. I was really trying to find certain aspects of the movie to hang on to enjoy it, but they had so little that it was so hard. Let me know your opinion. I really enjoy it when you guys comment and I get to hear what you guys think about the movie. That's the whole point on why I started this channel, was to interact with you guys and hear your guys' opinion. Was I wrong? Was I a little too harsh? Was this movie better than I am saying? Let me know. Tell me what you think. If anything, at the very least, comment your rating out of 10, out of 100, what you thought this movie really deserved to be rated. What are some of the good or bad aspects to it? Otherwise, if you want to watch somebody who does a similar format as me, then go watch my best friend Bosso movie reviews. He does the exact same format as me, where he compares in the same year, decade, and has his own all-time list. He is a little more he favors entertainment a little more, where I favor cinematography and our liking. So he has a very different list, and he is a huge superhero fan. So if you really enjoy superhero movies and want to see rankings on those, then go check him out. He will be doing a lot of those. Otherwise, make sure to comment what movie you want me to review next, and subscribe so that you can see me make a review on that movie and rank it all time. But that's all I've got. I'm Mr. Majoritarian. Stay classy, San Diego.